You are nothing, Lena. You have always been nothing. And standing there with hope in your eyes will not change that. The words came from her own sister, spoken with such casual cruelty that Lena felt them lodge somewhere deep in her chest, right next to all the other wounds she had collected over the years. The ceremonial hall was packed with wolves from every corner of the kingdom, all dressed in their finest, all here to witness the alpha of the Riverside Pack choose his Luna. Lena stood at, the very back of the Omega section, her plain gray dress a stark contrast to the sea of jewel tones surrounding her. She had known, of course she had known, that Alpha Marcus would not choose her. He had never looked at her, not once in all the years she had served his household. But some foolish part of her, the part that still believed in fairy tales and fated mates, had hoped that maybe, just maybe, the moon goddess had a different plan. That hope died, as Marcus took her sister Vivian's hand, raising it high above their heads while the crowd erupted in cheers. Vivian was beautiful, confident, everything an alpha's mate should be, and Lena was exactly what her sister said. Nothing. The ceremony continued with all its ancient rituals and formal declarations, but Lena barely heard any of it. She focused on breathing, on keeping her face neutral, on not letting anyone see how much this hurt. It should not have hurt. She should have been used to this by now, used to being overlooked, used to being the shadow that everyone walked past without a second glance. But somehow, watching her own sister claim the life Lena had secretly dreamed of, it felt like a knife twisting in her gut. When the final blessing was given, and the crowd began to disperse toward the reception hall, Lena turned to slip away unnoticed. She had perfected the art of disappearing, of being so unobtrusive that people forgot she was even there. But as she took her first step toward the side exit, a sound split. Through the air that made every wolf in the room freeze. It was a growl, deep and primal and ancient, the kind of sound that spoke of power beyond mortal understanding. It was the kind of sound that made even alphas drop to their knees in submission. Lena turned slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs, and found herself staring at the most magnificent and terrifying creature she had ever seen. The guardian beast stood in the center of the ceremonial hall, easily twice the size of the largest wolf she had ever encountered. Its fur was the color of midnight, shot through with veins of silver that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Eyes like molten gold fixed on the crowd, and in those eyes Lena saw intelligence, ancient and vast, and utterly inhuman. She had heard stories about the guardian beasts, of course. Every wolf child grew up on tales of the legendary creatures that bonded with the royal bloodline, that served as protectors and warriors and judges. But they were supposed to be extinct, gone for generations, vanished when the last of the Silver Dynasty fell. Yet here one stood, very much alive, very much real, and radiating power that made the air itself feel heavy. Alpha King Darius stood beside his guardian beast, his hand resting lightly on the creature's massive shoulder, his expression one of confusion and alarm. He was everything the stories claimed, and more, tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see straight through to a person's soul. Lena had never been this close to him before. The king rarely visited the smaller packs, and when he did, Omegas like her were kept well out of sight. But now those piercing eyes were scanning the crowd, searching for something, and Lena felt her breath catch when his gaze passed over her. Just passed over, not stopping, not seeing. Because why would the Alpha King notice someone like her? The guardian beast growled again, deeper this time, and then it moved. The crowd scattered like leaves before a storm as the massive creature stalked forward, its paws silent despite its size, its focus absolute and unwavering. Lena's instinct screamed at her to run, but her body would not obey. She stood frozen as the beast approached, her mind blank with terror and awe and something else, something she could not name. The guardian beast stopped directly in front of her, so close she could feel the heat radiating from its body, could smell the scent of wild places and ancient magic. It lowered its massive head, bringing those golden eyes level with hers, and for a moment that stretched into eternity, they simply looked at each other. Then the beast did something that no one, not in all the recorded histories of the kingdom, had ever witnessed. It bowed. Not the slight dip of acknowledgement it gave to Alpha King Darius, but a full, deep bow, pressing its enormous head nearly to the ground at Lena's feet. The silence that followed was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the Alpha King seemed struck speechless, staring at his guardian beast as if it had sprouted a second head. Lena's hands trembled as she reached out, some instinct she did not understand guiding her movements, and touched the silver-marked fur. The beast made a sound, low and rumbling, almost like a purr, and pressed closer to her touch. Impossible. The word came from Darius, spoken in a voice rough with shock. He was moving now, crossing the distance between them with the fluid grace of a born predator, his eyes fixed not on Lena, but on his beast. "Shadow, what are you doing? Come here. Now." The guardian beast, Lena's mind supplied the name even as her heart raced, did not move. It stayed exactly where it was, positioned between Lena and the rest of the room, its body a living shield. When Darius tried to approach closer, Shadow's lips pulled back in a warning snarl that made even the king pause. Lena saw the flash of hurt that crossed Darius's face before he masked it, saw the confusion and betrayal in his eyes. Shadow had been his constant companion since birth, bonded to him in a way that transcended normal pack bonds. For the beast to defy him, to choose someone else, it was unthinkable. What is the meaning of this? Alpha Marcus had recovered from his shock and was pushing through the crowd, Vivian at his side, both of them staring at Lena as if she had suddenly grown horns. "Your Majesty, I apologize for whatever offense this Omega has given. I will have her removed immediately and punished for this disruption." Marcus reached for Lena's arm, his grip firm and proprietary, the grip of an alpha used to being obeyed without question. Shadow moved faster than anything that size should have been able to move, placing itself between Marcus and Lena with a snarl that rattled the windows. Marcus stumbled backward, his face going pale, his alpha dominance crumbling in the face of true, ancient power. "Do not touch her." Darius's voice cut through the chaos, quiet but carrying absolute authority. He was not looking at Marcus anymore. He was looking at Lena, really looking at her for the first time, and there was something in his gaze that made her skin prickle with awareness. "No one touches her until I understand what is happening here." If you are enjoying this story, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. Lena wanted to disappear, wanted the ground to open up and swallow her whole, wanted to be anywhere but the center of attention with hundreds of eyes boring into her. She was not special. She was not important. She was just Lena, the Omega who scrubbed floors and served meals and tried her best to take up as little space as possible in a world that had made it very clear she did not matter. But Shadow seemed to have other ideas. The guardian beast pressed closer to her, its warmth seeping through the thin fabric of her dress, and she felt something shift inside her chest. It was like a door opening in a room she had not known existed, like light flooding into a space that had been dark for so long she had forgotten what brightness looked like. Her wolf, dormant and silent for her entire 22 years, stirred. It was the faintest whisper of awareness, the barest hint of presence. But it was there. Lena gasped, her hand flying to her chest, her eyes going wide with shock. "She has a wolf." The voice came from Elder Miriam, the pack's most senior member, her age-lined face creased with confusion and something that might have been fear. "But that is impossible. She was tested as a child. She was declared wolf-less. I conducted the ceremony myself." Darius was beside Lena now, having apparently decided that his guardian beast would not actually attack him. He moved with careful deliberation, his presence overwhelming, his scent of pine and winter frost filling her senses and making that newly awakened part of her consciousness. "Sit up and take notice." When he spoke, his voice was gentler than she expected, almost kind. "Look at me." It was not a request. Lena lifted her eyes to his, and the world tilted sideways. The mate bond snapped into place with such force that it drove the air from her lungs, a golden thread stretching between them, connecting them in ways that went beyond physical, beyond rational, beyond anything she had words to describe. She saw the exact moment Darius felt it too, saw his pupils dilate, saw the muscle jump in his jaw, saw the way his hand twitched as if he wanted to reach for her, but was stopping himself through sheer force of will. No. The word was barely a whisper, but in the silent hall it carried clearly. Darius took a step back, then another, his face a mask of denial and conflict. "This cannot be. I am already promised. The alliance with the Northern Territories depends on my marriage to Lady Celeste. The treaty has been signed. The ceremony is in 3 weeks." He looked at Shadow, at his guardian beast who was still pressed protectively against Lena, and something cracked in his carefully controlled expression. "You knew. You knew, and you did not tell me. How long? How long have you known she was my mate?" Shadow made a sound that was almost apologetic, almost guilty, but did not move from Lena's side. The beast's loyalty, it seemed, had shifted, or perhaps had always belonged somewhere Darius had not realized. And that somewhere was to a wolf-less Omega in a gray dress who was currently wishing she could simply cease to exist. Vivian's laugh cut through the tension, sharp and mocking and cruel. "This is ridiculous. Lena cannot be anyone's mate, let alone the Alpha King's. Look at her. She is nothing. She has always been nothing. This is some kind of trick, some kind of desperate ploy for attention." Lena felt the words like physical blows, each one landing with the precision of long practice. Vivian had always known exactly how to hurt her, had spent years perfecting the art of making Lena feel small and worthless and invisible. But this time, with Shadow's warm presence beside her, and that golden thread humming in her chest, the words did not sink as deep. This time, for the first time in her life, Lena lifted her chin and met her sister's gaze directly. "I did not ask for this. I did not want this. I was trying to leave, to disappear like I always do, like everyone wants me to. But I am tired, Vivian. I am tired of being treated like I am less than nothing. I am tired of apologizing for existing. And I am tired of you." The gasps that rippled through the crowd were almost comical. Apparently, the idea of mousy, meek Lena standing up for herself was more shocking than a guardian beast bowing to her. Marcus looked apoplectic, his face red with rage at this Omega daring to speak out of turn, daring to challenge her betters. But before he could open his mouth, Darius raised one hand, and the Alpha fell silent. The power in that simple gesture was breathtaking. This was what a true king looked like, Lena thought distantly. Not someone who ruled through fear and cruelty, but someone whose authority was so absolute, so unquestionable, that a single gesture could command instant obedience. "She comes with me." Darius's voice was flat, emotionless, the voice of someone making a tactical decision rather than an emotional one. "Until we understand what is happening. Until we determine why my guardian beast has chosen to bond with her, she will stay at the royal palace under my protection. Anyone who has a problem with that is welcome to challenge me for the right to decide otherwise." No one moved. No one was that stupid. Challenging the Alpha King was suicide, and everyone in the room knew it. Darius looked at Lena, his expression unreadable, that golden thread between them pulling taut with unspoken things. "Can you walk? Or do you need assistance?" It was a simple question, asked in a neutral tone, but Lena heard the concern underneath. She nodded, not trusting her voice, and took a step forward. Her legs held. Barely. Shadow moved with her, matching her pace exactly, a living shadow at her side that seemed determined to never let her out of its sight again. As they walked through the crowd, wolves pressing themselves against the walls to give them room, Lena felt the weight of hundreds of stares. She heard the whispers starting already, the speculation and gossip and theories. By tomorrow, every pack in the kingdom would know that the Alpha King's guardian beast had bowed to a nobody Omega, that the mate bond had formed between royalty and refuse. She should have been terrified. She probably would be later, when the shock wore off and reality set in. But right now, walking beside the Alpha King with a legendary creature at her side and her wolf finally stirring to life inside her, Lena felt something she had never experienced before. She felt seen. The journey to the royal palace took less than an hour by the king's personal vehicle, a sleek black transport that moved with preternatural silence through the night. Lena sat in the back with Shadow, who had refused to be separated from her even for the duration of the trip, while Darius sat up front with his driver. He had not spoken to her since they left the ceremony hall, had barely looked at her, and Lena did not know if that was a blessing or a curse. The silence gave her too much time to think, too much time to process. What had just happened? Mate. The word echoed in her mind, foreign and familiar all at once. She was the Alpha King's mate, except he was already promised to someone else, already committed to a political alliance that apparently mattered more than the bond the moon goddess herself had forged between them. The rational part of Lena's mind understood. She had spent her whole life understanding her place, understanding that duty and politics trumped personal feelings every time. But the newly awakened part of her, the part that was connected to Darius through that golden thread, felt the rejection like a wound. Shadow's massive head rested on her lap, the weight grounding and comforting. Lena stroked the soft fur absently, marveling at the way the silver markings seemed to glow brighter under her touch. "Why did you choose me?" she whispered, knowing the beast could not answer but needing to ask anyway. "I am nothing special. I am not powerful or important. I cannot even shift. So, why?" Shadow made a low sound, somewhere between a whine and a rumble, and pressed closer. And in that moment, Lena felt it again, that stirring inside her chest, that sense of something vast and ancient waking up after a very long sleep. Her wolf was there. She could feel it now, sense its presence hovering just beneath her consciousness. But there was something wrong with the sensation, something not quite right. It did not feel like the description she had heard other wolves give of their first shift. It felt bigger than that, older than that, like her wolf was not just a wolf, but something more, something other. The palace rose out of the darkness, like a mountain of stone and glass, all soaring towers and elegant archways, imposing and beautiful and utterly intimidating. Lena had never been anywhere like this, had never even dreamed of stepping foot in a place reserved for royalty and high-ranking officials. As the vehicle pulled into a private entrance, she saw wolves in formal guard uniforms standing at attention, their eyes tracking the car with professional vigilance. When Darius opened her door and offered his hand to help her out, Lena hesitated. Touching him seemed dangerous, seemed like it would make all of this too real. But refusing seemed worse, seemed like an insult she could not afford to give. She placed her hand in his, and the jolt of electricity that raced up her arm at the contact nearly made her gasp. Darius's jaw tightened, his fingers closing around. Hers with careful control, and she knew he felt it too. The mate bond did not care about politics or promises or practical considerations. It just was, insistent and undeniable. Shadow jumped down from the vehicle with surprising grace for something so large, immediately positioning itself between Lena and the guards. Darius sighed, a sound that spoke of exhaustion and frustration and too many problems to solve all at once. "Stand down. She is under my protection. No one is to approach her. Without my explicit permission, and anyone who threatens her in any way will answer to me personally. Is that understood?" The guards snapped to attention, their voices ringing out in unison. "Yes, Your Majesty." Darius still had not let go of Lena's hand. He led her through corridors that seemed to stretch on forever, past priceless artwork and ancient tapestries, past rooms that probably cost more than Lena's entire pack house. She tried not to gawk, tried to maintain some shred of dignity. But it was hard when everything around her screamed wealth and power, and a world so far removed from her own that they might as well have been different planets. They finally stopped at a set of ornate double doors that Darius opened with a touch of his palm to the security panel. The room beyond was a suite, Lena realized. Not just a bedroom, but an entire living space with multiple rooms and furnishings that looked like they belonged in a museum. "You will stay here," Darius said, his voice still maintaining that carefully neutral tone. "It is warded against intrusion, both physical and magical. You will be safe here while we figure out what is happening." He paused, seeming to struggle with what to say next, his eyes finally meeting hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "I need you to understand something. The alliance with the Northern Territories is not just about politics or power. It is about survival. We are on the brink of war with the Eastern clans, and without the Northern armies we will lose. Thousands of wolves will die. Entire packs will be wiped out. I will not, sacrifice my people for personal desires, no matter how strong those desires might be." Lena understood what he was saying, what he was really saying. He was telling her that the mate bond did not matter, that she did not matter, not when weighed against the fate of the kingdom. It should not have hurt. She should have expected it. But the pain that lanced through her chest was sharp and immediate, and she had to fight to keep her face neutral. "I understand," she managed to say, proud when her voice did not shake. "I never expected anything different. I know my place, Your Majesty. I have always known my place." Something flickered across Darius's face. Something that might have been regret or guilt or anger. She could not tell which. "Your place," he repeated softly, almost to himself. "Your place is apparently important enough for my guardian beast to choose you over me. So perhaps your place is not what you think it is." He turned to leave, then stopped at the door, his back to her. "Elder Thorn will come see you in the morning. She is our foremost expert on guardian beasts and ancient bloodlines. If there is something about you that Shadow recognized, something that explains this, she will find it." Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click that sounded like finality. Lena stood in the center of the impossibly luxurious room and felt the tears she had been holding back finally start to fall. Shadow pressed against her legs, solid and warm and loyal in a way that nothing else in her life had ever been. "Why?" she asked again, her voice breaking on the word. "Why did you have to choose me? My life was small, but it was mine. It was safe. And now everything is ruined, and I do not even understand why." The guardian beast looked up at her with those ancient golden eyes and made a sound that was almost like a sigh. Then it did something that shocked Lena to her core. It spoke. Not out loud, not with words that her ears could hear, but directly into her mind. Its voice layered and resonant and utterly inhuman. "Because you are what you have always been, Little Silver. Because the blood of queens runs in your veins, even if you have forgotten. Because destiny does not care about what is convenient or safe. And because he needs you, even if he does not know it yet. What do you think will happen next? Leave your predictions in the comments below." Lena's legs gave out and she sat down hard on the plush carpet, her mind reeling. Shadow could speak. Guardian beasts could speak. And it had called her Silver, had mentioned queens and blood and destiny, had implied that Lena was something more than she appeared. It was too much. All of it was too much. "I do not understand," she whispered. "I am just an Omega. I have no wolf, no power, no lineage worth mentioning. My parents were nobody. They died when I was young and I barely remember them. I was raised by the pack, by people who made it very clear I was a burden they tolerated out of obligation. There is nothing special about me. There never has been." Shadow's mental voice was gentle now, almost kind. "Your parents died protecting a secret, little one. They died to keep you hidden, to keep you safe until the time was right. But the time is right now, whether we wish it or not. The king's marriage to the Northern Lady will doom this kingdom. She is not what she seems, and you are the only one who can save him, save all of them, if you can remember who you truly are." Lena wanted to argue, wanted to insist that Shadow was wrong, that this was all some terrible mistake. But deep inside, in that place where her wolf was stirring to life, she felt the truth of the guardian beast's words. There was something there, something buried under years of suppression and denial and deliberate forgetting. Memories flickered at the edges of her consciousness, fragmented and confusing. A woman with silver hair singing a lullaby in a language Lena did not recognize. A man with kind eyes pressing something cold and metal into her small hand, whispering that she must keep it hidden, must never let anyone see. Fire and screaming and running through the night while the world burned behind her. "No!" Lena gasped, pressing her hands to her temples as the memories crashed over her like waves. "No, that cannot be real. I would remember. I would—" "No." Shadow's voice was steady, anchoring. "They made you forget. It was the only way to keep you safe, to hide you from those who would kill you for what you are. But the spell is breaking now, has been breaking since the moment you touched me. By tomorrow you will remember everything. By tomorrow you will understand why the Northern Alliance must not happen. By tomorrow you will have to choose whether to hide and let the kingdom fall, or to stand and claim what is rightfully yours." The guardian beast stood then, moving toward the bedroom portion of the suite. "Rest now, while you still can. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tomorrow, the Silver Queen awakens, and the king will have to decide if he is brave enough to stand beside you or foolish enough to stand in your way." Shadow settled on the floor beside the massive bed, its eyes still glowing in the darkness, still watching over her with unwavering vigilance. Lena climbed onto the bed fully clothed, too overwhelmed to even think about changing, too exhausted to do anything but collapse. Her last thought before sleep claimed her was that 12 hours ago, her biggest concern had been whether there would be enough food at the reception for the Omegas. Now she was apparently a hidden queen, mated to the Alpha King, protected by a legendary beast, and destined to either save the kingdom or watch it burn. Her life, as she had known it, was over. And Lena had no idea if that was a tragedy or a miracle. She dreamed of silver hair, and silver eyes, and silver light that poured from her hands like water. She dreamed of a palace that was not Darius's palace, older and grander, and carved from stone that seemed to hold moonlight in its very structure. She dreamed of wolves that were not quite wolves, larger and more powerful and touched with magic that made the air shimmer around them. And she dreamed of a woman who looked like her. Or perhaps she looked like the woman. It was hard to tell. The woman wore a crown of living silver that moved and shifted like liquid metal, and her eyes held the weight of centuries. "My daughter," the woman said, her voice echoing across the dream space. "My precious daughter, I am so sorry. Sorry we left you alone. Sorry we could not be there to guide you. Sorry you had to grow up thinking you were nothing when you are everything. But you are strong, stronger than you know. And the time has come to remember. The time has come to be who you were always meant to be. The woman reached out and touched Lena's forehead, and it felt like lightning striking, like doors blowing open in her mind, like chains shattering and falling away. Information flooded in, memories that were not quite memories, knowledge that felt both foreign and intimately familiar. She saw the history of the Silver Dynasty, saw the fall of the great houses when the lesser wolves rose up in rebellion, saw her parents fleeing with her as a baby while their palace burned, saw them using the last of their magic to bind her wolf, to hide her royal scent, to make her appear as nothing more than a common Omega, so that no one would think to look for the lost princess in the pack house of a minor alpha. Saw them die defending her, buying time with their lives so that the loyal few could spirit her away to safety. Saw herself being raised by wolves who had no idea who she really was, who treated her exactly as Omegas were always treated, with casual cruelty and thoughtless dismissal. And she saw the future, or possible futures, branching paths that shifted and changed, depending on choices not yet made. In one path, she stayed silent and hidden, and Darius married Lady Celeste of the Northern Territories. Within a year, the Northern Lady revealed her true nature as an agent of the Eastern clans, poisoning Darius and orchestrating a coup that left the kingdom in ruins. In another path, Lena revealed herself too soon, claimed her heritage before she was ready, and was destroyed by those who still harbored hatred for the Silver bloodline. The kingdom fell anyway, torn apart by civil war. But in a third path, a narrow and dangerous path, Lena learned to control her power, learned to be the queen her parents had raised her to be, and stood beside Darius not as his inferior, but as his equal. Together they exposed the northern treachery, united the fractured packs under the old ways, and ushered in an era of peace that had not been seen in generations. That path was lit with silver light, and at the end of it, Lena saw herself wearing a crown that matched the one her mother wore in these dreams, saw Darius looking at her with love and respect and partnership. But that path was also lined with trials and pain and sacrifices she could not yet fathom. "The choice is yours, my daughter," her mother's voice said, already starting to fade as the dream released its hold. "It has always been yours. But know this, you are not alone. You have never been alone. The Guardian. Beasts were created by our bloodline, bound to serve and protect the Silver Queens. Shadow knows who you are, has always known, and has been waiting for this moment since the day it bonded with the young king. It chose Darius because it knew his path would lead to you. Nothing that has happened is coincidence. Everything has led to this moment, to this choice. Be brave, little one. Be who you were born to be." The dream shattered like glass, and Lena woke gasping, sitting bolt upright in the unfamiliar bed with her heart racing and sweat soaking through her dress. Morning light streamed through the enormous windows, and Shadow was still there, still watching, its golden eyes knowing and patient. "You remember now," the guardian beast said, statement not question. "You remember who you are." Lena pressed shaking hands to her face and felt the tears come, but they were different than the tears from last night. These were not tears of despair or hopelessness or crushing defeat. These were tears of grief for parents she had forgotten, for a childhood stolen, for years spent thinking she was worthless when she had been precious beyond measure. "They loved me," she choked out. "My parents, they loved me so much they died for me, and I forgot them. I forgot everything." Shadow's voice was gentle. "You were 4 years old when the binding was placed, Little Silver. You could not have held on to those memories even if you wanted to. But they are with you now. The question is, what will you do with them?" Lena stood on unsteady legs and walked to the window, looking out over the palace grounds and the city beyond. Somewhere out there, wolves went about their daily lives with no idea that the lost princess had returned. Somewhere out there, The northern lady was preparing for a wedding that would spell doom for them all. And somewhere in this very palace, Darius was probably trying to figure out how to handle the Omega, who had complicated his carefully laid plans. I need to tell him, Lena said, decision crystallizing even as she spoke. I need to tell Darius who I am, what I know, what is coming. He deserves to know the truth before he makes a choice that will destroy everything. Shadow made a sound that might have been approval or might have been concern. The king is a good man, but he is also a proud one. Learning that his mate is not a powerless Omega but a hidden queen, that his guardian beast kept secrets from him, that his perfect political marriage is actually an elaborate trap, it will not be easy for him to accept. And there are those in this palace who will not want you to succeed, who profit from the current power structure and will see your return as a threat. Lena turned from the window, squaring her shoulders, lifting her chin. She could feel her wolf now, no longer dormant, but awake and aware, its presence a steady strength inside her. She could feel the power in her blood, the magic of her lineage stirring after 22 years of enforced sleep. She was still afraid, still uncertain, still the girl who had been taught her whole life that she did not matter. But she was also her mother's daughter, her father's legacy, the last of a line that had ruled with wisdom and compassion for centuries. Then I will have to be stronger than them, she said quietly. I will have to be brave enough for both Darius and myself. I will have to become what I was born to be, even if it terrifies me. She looked at Shadow, at the magnificent creature that had chosen her, that had protected her, that had waited patiently for her to wake up and remember. Will you help me? Will you teach me how to use what I am, how to control this power I can feel building inside me? The guardian beast rose to its feet, and in that moment Lena could have sworn it smiled, lips pulling back to reveal teeth that could tear through steel. Little Silver, it would be my honor. Your mother saved my life once, long ago when I was young and foolish and cornered by enemies. I swore an oath to serve her bloodline until the end of my days, teaching you, protecting you, helping you claim what is yours. It is why I exist. But know this, the path ahead will test you in ways you cannot imagine. You will be asked to choose between love and duty, between vengeance and mercy, between the girl you were and the queen you must become. And some of those choices will break your heart. If you want to see how this story ends, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. A knock sounded at the door, firm and authoritative. Shadow growled low in its throat, moving instantly to place itself between Lena and the potential threat. Who is it? Lena called out, proud when her voice came out steady and calm. Elder Thorn, Your Highness. His Majesty sent me to examine you and hopefully provide some answers about recent events. The honorific made Lena's breath catch. Your Highness. The elder knew, or at least suspected. Lena looked at Shadow, who nodded once, giving permission or perhaps encouragement. Lena smoothed down her wrinkled dress, pushed her tangled hair back from her face, and tried to look like someone who deserved to be called Highness. Come in. The door opened to reveal a woman who appeared to be in her 70s, though with wolves it was always hard to tell. Elder Thorn had silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, sharp green eyes that missed nothing, and an air of quiet authority that spoke of decades spent in positions of power. She took one look at Lena, then at Shadow, and her expression shifted from professional curiosity to something like wonder. By the moon goddess, she breathed. The rumors are true. The Silver Princess lives. She sank into a deep curtsy, the kind reserved for royalty, and Lena felt panic flutter in her chest. This was real. This was actually happening. She was not just Lena the Omega anymore. She was a princess, possibly a queen, definitely someone who had responsibilities she had no idea how to fulfill. Please, Lena said quickly. Please stand. I do not know how to do this. I do not know how to be what you think I am." Elder Thorn rose with grace and fixed Lena with a look that was both kind and firm. "Then it is fortunate that I am here to teach you, Your Highness. But first, we need to verify your identity beyond any doubt, and we need to do it in a way that will convince the king and the council. Are you willing to undergo the blood trial?" Lena had no idea what the blood trial was, but she nodded anyway. She had come too far to back down now. Elder Thorn pulled a small silver dagger from her robes, ornate and ancient, and etched with symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. This blade was forged by the first Silver Queen, blessed by the moon goddess herself. It will only draw blood from those who carry the royal lineage. For anyone else, it passes through skin like air, harmless and ineffective. "May I?" Lena held out her hand, palm up, trying not to flinch as the elder pressed the blade against her skin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lena felt a sharp sting, felt blood well up from a shallow cut, felt power surge up her arm like fire. The blood that dripped onto the floor was not red. It was silver, bright and metallic, and absolutely unmistakable. Elder Thorn made a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and dropped to her knees again. The Silver Queen returns. By the goddess, the prophecies were true. The line is not broken. There is hope yet. She looked up at Lena with tears streaming down her weathered face. "Your Majesty, forgive this old wolf for doubting. Forgive us all for failing to protect your parents, for allowing the rebellion to succeed, for letting you grow up alone and forgotten. But you are here now, and that changes everything." Lena wanted to tell the elder to stand, to stop treating her like she was someone important, but she was starting to understand that she could not do that anymore. Whether she wanted it or not, whether she felt ready or not, she was important. She was the lost princess, the last of the Silver Dynasty, possibly the only thing standing between the kingdom and destruction. She had to start acting like it, had to start becoming the queen these people needed her to be. "What happens now?" Lena asked, pleased when her voice came out regal and composed instead of terrified and uncertain. "Now," Elder Thorn said, standing and tucking the knee. Dagger away. "Now we go to the king. We show him the proof of your identity. We explain the danger he is in, the trap that has been laid for him. And we pray to the moon goddess that he is wise enough to listen before it is too late." She paused, her expression growing grave. "But I must warn you, Your Majesty. There are those in this court who will not welcome your return. The current power structure benefits many who have no love for the old ways. And Lady Celeste has been cultivating allies. Here for months, preparing the ground for her eventual rule. Coming forward now will paint a target on your back that no amount of royal blood will erase." Lena thought about her dream, about the possible futures branching out before her. She thought about her parents who had died to keep her safe, about the guardian beast who had waited years for her awakening, about the mate bond humming in her chest that connected her to a king who did not yet understand what they could be together. She thought about all the wolves who would die if the Northern Alliance went forward, all the innocent lives that would be lost to a war they did not see coming. "I am already a target," Lena said quietly. "I have been a target my whole life. I just did not know it. At least now I know who I am fighting for and why. At least now I have the power to fight back." She looked at Shadow, at her guardian beast, her protector, her guide. "We do this now. We do this before I lose my nerve and before Darius does something we will all regret. Take me to the king, Elder Thorn. It is time His Majesty learned the truth about his mate." The walk through the palace felt different than it had the night before. Then, Lena had been a frightened Omega, trying not to touch anything valuable or draw attention to herself. Now, with Elder Thorn at her side and Shadow at her back, she moved like someone who had every right to be there. She kept her shoulders straight, her head high, her expression serene even though her heart was racing and her palms were sweating. They passed servants and guards and nobles, and Lena saw the way their eyes widened, saw the whispers starting, saw the way people bowed or stepped aside without even seeming to realize they were doing it. Was it her bloodline they were responding to? Some instinctive recognition of royal heritage? Or was it simply the sight of the guardian beast, a creature of legend that commanded respect through its very presence? Either way. By the time they reached the king's private study, Lena felt like she was walking in a dream, disconnected from reality, watching herself from somewhere outside her own body. Elder Thorn knocked once, sharp and clear. "Your Majesty, it is Elder Thorn. I have urgent news regarding the Omega you brought to the palace last night. I must speak with you immediately." There was a pause, the sound of movement. Then the door swung open to reveal Darius. He looked tired, Lena thought, like he had not slept at all. His eyes went immediately to her, and she felt that golden thread between them pull tight. Felt the mate bond singing with proximity and need. "What is so urgent that it could not wait until a more appropriate hour?" he asked, his voice carrying an edge of irritation that did not quite mask the concern underneath. Elder Thorn did not waste time with pleasantries. "Your Majesty, I have performed the blood trial. The results are conclusive and irrefutable." She gestured to Lena, with something approaching reverence. "May I present Her Royal Highness Princess Selena Argentum, last surviving heir of the Silver Dynasty, rightful queen of the ancient bloodlines, and your fated mate." The silence that followed was absolute and terrible. Darius stared at Lena as if he had never seen her before, his expression cycling through disbelief, shock, confusion, and something that might have been hope before settling on carefully controlled neutrality. That is impossible. The Silver line ended 20 years ago when the royal family was killed during the rebellion. There were no survivors. It is a matter of historical record. Elder Thorn produced the silver dagger and held it out to him. "Test her yourself, Your Majesty. The blade does not lie. It cannot lie. It was created specifically to verify royal blood, and it has never failed in 1,000 years of use." Darius took the dagger with obvious reluctance, his eyes never leaving Lena's face. "If this is some kind of trick, if you are trying to manipulate me or the situation, I will know. And there will be consequences." Lena held out her hand again, the cut from earlier already healed, leaving only the faintest silver scar. "I am not trying to trick you. I am trying to save you. Test me. Verify what I am. And then listen to what I have to say about Lady Celeste and the Northern Alliance. Please." Darius pressed the blade to her palm, and Lena felt that same sting, that same surge of power. Silver blood welled up and dripped onto the expensive carpet at their feet, staining it with metallic brightness that could not be mistaken for anything else. Darius stumbled backward, the dagger clattering from his hand, his face going pale. "No, this cannot be. You are an Omega. You are wolf-less. You are from a minor pack with no significant lineage. You cannot be royalty. You cannot be the lost princess. It does not make sense." Lena felt something crack inside her chest at the rejection in his voice, at the denial written all over his face. He did not want her to be a princess. He wanted her to be nothing, so that dismissing the mate bond would be easier, so that choosing his political marriage would not feel like betrayal. "My name is Selena," she said quietly, each word deliberate and clear. "I was born to Queen Helena and King Argent of the Silver Dynasty. When I was 4 years old, our palace was attacked by rebels who wanted to end the old bloodlines and establish a new order. My parents used their magic to hide me, to bind my wolf and suppress my scent so that I would appear ordinary. They died buying time for their loyal guards to get me to safety. I was raised in secret, passed from pack to pack until I ended up with Riverside, where no one knew who I was or what I represented." She took a step toward him, ignoring the way he tensed. ignoring the pain that lanced through her every time he pulled away. I did not know any of this until last night. I did not remember my parents. Or my heritage, or what I was supposed to be. But the binding is breaking now. My wolf is waking, and the memories are coming back. All of them, including knowledge of things that are coming. Things that will destroy this kingdom if you marry Lady Celeste. Darius shook his head, backing away from her like she was dangerous, like she was something to be feared. You are asking me to believe that the Omega I met yesterday is actually a hidden princess with prophetic knowledge and magical powers. You are asking me to throw away months of careful negotiation and strategic planning based on the word of someone I do not know, do not trust, and who appeared in my life less than 24 hours ago. Why would I do that? Give me one good reason why I should believe any of this. Shadow growled, low and warning, clearly not appreciating the king's tone. But Lena held up one hand, stopping the guardian beast from intervening. This was between her and Darius, between mates, between potential. Partners who needed to find a way to trust each other or watch everything burn. Because your guardian beast chose me, Lena said simply. Because the blood trial does not lie. Because you feel the mate bond just as strongly as I do, and you know that the moon goddess does not make mistakes. And because deep down, in a place you will not admit even to yourself, you know something is wrong with the Northern Alliance. You know that Lady Celeste does not feel right, that the deal she is offering is too good to be true, that there is something beneath the surface you are not seeing. I am not asking you to take my word for everything. I am asking you to investigate, to look deeper, to question what you have accepted without verification. If I am wrong, if Lady Celeste is exactly what she appears to be, then you have lost nothing but a few days of investigation. But if I am right, if she is the trap I know she is, then I have just saved your life and your kingdom. Is that not worth the risk? Darius stood frozen, clearly torn between what he wanted to believe and what the evidence was forcing him to consider. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion he was barely controlling. If what you say is true, if you really are Princess Selena, then you are not just my mate. You are my equal in rank and authority. You are someone I would be obligated to honor and respect. Someone I could not simply dismiss or ignore, or set aside for political convenience. Lena felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Is that what you want, Darius? Do you want me to be nothing so that rejecting me will be easier? Because I can promise you, mate bond or not, royal blood or not, rejecting me will destroy us both. The moon goddess does not forgive those who turn their backs on the gifts she provides. You can marry your northern lady if you insist, but you will spend the rest of your life wondering what we could have been, feeling the empty ache where our bond should be singing. Is that really the future you want? The question hung between them, heavy and terrible and unavoidable. Elder Thorn cleared her throat delicately, drawing their attention. Perhaps, Your Majesty, we could start with verification. I have contacts in the old archives, wolves who remember the Silver Dynasty, who knew the royal family personally. Let us bring them here. Let them confirm Princess Selena's identity, and then we can discuss the matter of Lady Celeste and the Northern Alliance. Surely a few days' delay in the wedding preparations will not cause irreparable harm, and it will give us time to ensure we are making decisions based on facts rather than assumptions. Darius looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, wanted to cling to the plans he had made and the future he had envisioned. But he was also a king, and a king had to consider all possibilities, had to verify threats before dismissing them. Finally, slowly, he nodded. 3 days. I will give you 3 days to prove your claims and provide evidence about Lady Celeste. But understand this, princess or not, mate or not, I will not allow personal feelings to endanger my kingdom. If the Northern Alliance is our best chance for survival, I will go through with it regardless of what you or anyone else says. My duty to my people comes before everything else, including my own happiness." It was not the acceptance Lena had hoped for, but it was better than outright rejection. She inclined her head in acknowledgement, trying to look regal and composed when what she really wanted was to throw herself into his arms and beg him to believe her, to choose her, to give them a chance. 3 days is all I need. Thank you, Your Majesty. You will not regret this." Darius's laugh was bitter and sharp. "I already regret it. I regret the moment I saw you at that ceremony. Regret that my guardian beast chose to complicate everything. Regret that fate saw fit to give me a mate I cannot afford to keep. But regret has never stopped me from doing what needs to be done. 3 days, Princess Selena. Make them count. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who loves epic romance. Tell me in the comments, did you see this ending coming? The 3 days that followed were the most intense and exhausting of Lena's entire life. Elder Thorn brought in wolves from across the kingdom, ancient pack members who had served the Silver Dynasty, who remembered the royal family, who could verify Lena's identity beyond any doubt. One by one they came, and one by one they fell to their knees when they saw her, calling her princess, calling her the image of her mother, calling her the hope they had thought was lost forever. Each verification felt like a weight settling on Lena's shoulders, the burden of expectation and responsibility growing heavier with every passing hour. But she bore it, because she had to, because there was no one else who could. Elder Thorn also began teaching her about her heritage, about the magic in her blood, about the powers she should be able to access if she could just learn to control them. Silver Queens, she learned, were not like ordinary wolves. Their connection to the moon goddess was deeper, more primal, granting them abilities that went beyond simple strength and speed. They could heal with a touch, command lesser wolves with their voice, see glimpses of possible futures in their dreams. They could channel moonlight itself, using it as a weapon or a shield, and in times of great need, they could call upon the goddess directly for aid. But these powers required training and focus, and a level of self-confidence that Lena was still struggling to achieve. She was getting better, though. Each day she practiced, each hour she spent learning to access her wolf and channel her magic, she felt more like the queen she was supposed to be, and less like the frightened Omega she had been. While Lena trained, Shadow worked with Elder Thorn's network to investigate Lady Celeste and the Northern Alliance. What they found was damning. The Northern Lady was not who she claimed to be. Her real name was Celeste Thornhart, daughter of a minor Eastern clan family, and she had been placed in the Northern Territories years ago as part of a long-term infiltration plan. The real Northern heir, the legitimate princess who should have been negotiating this alliance, had died under mysterious circumstances 2 years ago, and Celeste had simply taken her place, assuming her identity with such skill that no one had questioned it. The alliance Darius had been so carefully cultivating was a sham, designed to get Celeste into the royal palace where she could poison the king and destabilize the government from within. The Eastern clans would then sweep in under the guise of restoring order, claiming the kingdom for themselves and ending the royal bloodline forever. It was an elaborate, patient, brilliantly executed conspiracy, and it had almost worked. It would have worked if not for a Omega in a gray dress and a guardian beast who knew the value of what everyone else had dismissed. On the evening of the 3rd day, Lena sat in Darius's study with Elder Thorn, Shadow, and half a dozen other high-ranking officials, presenting the evidence they had gathered. Darius listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each revelation, his hands clenched into fists on the armrests of his chair. When Lena finished speaking, the silence in the room was thick enough to cut. Finally, one of the council members, an old wolf named Marcus, who had always been vocal in his support of the Northern Alliance, spoke up. "This is all very compelling, Your Highness, but it is also entirely circumstantial. You have suspicions and theories, but no concrete proof that Lady Celeste is who you claim she is, or that she intends harm to the king. Lena had expected this. She had known that some of the council would resist, would cling to their plans and their power structures even in the face of evidence. She looked at Darius, at her mate who still held himself apart from her, who still refused to acknowledge the bond singing between them, and made a decision. Then let me offer you proof that cannot be disputed. Let me offer you a demonstration of power that only a true Silver Queen could provide. She stood, feeling her wolf rise within her, feeling the magic in her blood respond to her. Call. She raised one hand and focused, drawing on the moonlight streaming through the windows, channeling it through her body and into the space above her palm. Silver light coalesced, bright and pure and achingly beautiful, forming into the shape of the Silver Dynasty's royal crest. A wolf howling at a full moon surrounded by ancient runes. The light was so intense that everyone in the room had to shield their eyes, so powerful that it made the air vibrate with energy. This is the mark of my bloodline, Lena said, her voice resonating with power she had only just learned to access. This is the proof of my heritage. No fraud could create this. No impostor could channel the moon goddess's own light. I am Princess Selena Argentum, daughter of Helena and Argent, last of the Silver Dynasty, and I am offering myself as your queen, not because I want power or glory, but because my people need me, because my mate needs me, even if he is too proud or too stubborn to admit it. She let the light fade slowly, gently, until it was just a faint shimmer in the air around her. Then she looked directly at Darius, putting every ounce of emotion she felt into her words. I know you are afraid. I know that accepting me means changing everything you thought you knew, everything you planned for. But I am not asking you to choose me over your duty. I am asking you to see that choosing me is choosing your duty, that together we can be stronger than you could ever be with a false queen at your side. Give us a chance, Darius. Give the mate bond a chance. Let me prove that I can be the partner you need, the queen this kingdom deserves. For a long moment, Darius just stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he stood and crossed the distance between them. He reached out and took her hand, the one still glowing faintly with residual magic, and brought it to his lips. The kiss was formal, chaste, but the electricity that sparked between them at the contact was anything but. I have been a fool, he said quietly, his eyes finally meeting hers without reservation or defense. I have been so focused on duty and politics and doing what I thought was right that I ignored what my heart and my guardian beast were trying to tell me. You are magnificent, Selena. You are everything I did not know I needed. And if you will have me, if you can forgive my blindness and my pride, I would be honored to stand beside you as your mate and your king. Lena felt something in her chest crack open, felt joy and relief and love pouring out like light, felt the mate bond finally settling into place the way it was always meant to. She did not care that they were in a room full of witnesses, did not care about protocol or propriety or what was appropriate. She threw her arms around Darius's neck and kissed him with all the passion and need and hope she had been holding back for 3 endless days. He responded immediately, his arms coming around her waist, pulling her close, kissing her like she was air and he had been drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, both flushed with desire and connection, and the sheer rightness of being together, Lena saw that most of the council was smiling. Even old Marcus looked grudgingly approving, as if he had to admit that maybe, just maybe, this was the better path after all. Elder Thorne was openly crying, tears of happiness streaming down her weathered face. The Silver Queen and her king, she said, her voice thick with emotion. The prophecy is fulfilled. The kingdom will be whole again. The rest happened quickly. Darius formally rejected the Northern Alliance, exposing Celeste's true identity and sending her back to the Eastern clans in disgrace. The real Northern Territories, horrified to learn that their princess had been murdered and replaced, actually strengthened their support of Darius's rule, creating an even stronger alliance than the false one had promised. Lena was formally acknowledged as Princess Selena Argentum and crowned as queen in a ceremony that brought wolves from every pack in the kingdom to witness the return of the Silver Dynasty. She stood before the sacred altar, wearing a crown of living silver that her mother had worn before her, with Darius at her side and Shadow at her back, and pledged herself to the service of her people. The vows she spoke were ancient, the words her ancestors had spoken for 1,000 years, and as she spoke them, she felt the full weight of her heritage settling into place. She was not just Lena anymore. She was Queen Selena, Luna of the royal pack, mate to the Alpha King, and guardian of all wolves who called this kingdom home. It was terrifying and exhilarating and absolutely right. The coronation was followed by the mating ceremony, a private ritual attended only by their closest allies, and Elder Thorn as witness. Darius marked her beneath the full moon, his teeth sinking into her neck as she marked him in return. Their wolves finally running together in perfect harmony. Lena's wolf, when it finally emerged fully, was larger than any normal she-wolf, its fur the color of moonlight, with eyes that glowed silver. It was a queen's wolf, powerful and beautiful and touched with magic that made lesser wolves bow in instinct. Together, she and Darius ran through the night, two halves of a whole finally united, and for the first time in her life, Lena understood what it meant to be complete. In the months that followed, Queen Selena proved herself to be everything her people had hoped for and more. She healed old wounds between fractured packs, used her diplomatic skills to forge new alliances, and channeled her magic to strengthen the kingdom's defenses against the eastern clans, who still harbored thoughts of invasion. She was kind, but firm, compassionate, but just, and absolutely unwilling to tolerate injustice or cruelty in any form. Wolves who had once dismissed Omegas as worthless found themselves facing a queen who remembered every slight, every casual cruelty, every moment of being treated as less than. She did not seek vengeance, but she did demand change, and under her rule, the old hierarchies began to shift toward something more equitable. Darius stood beside her through all of it, her partner in every sense of the word, and their bond grew stronger with each passing day. He learned to trust her instincts, to value her counsel, to see her not as a burden or a complication, but as the greatest gift fate had ever given him. And Selena learned to be confident in her power, to embrace her heritage without apology, to stand tall and proud as the queen she had been born to be. On the anniversary of her coronation, as they stood together on the palace balcony watching the celebration in the streets below, Darius pulled her close and whispered in her ear, "Do you remember that first night, when you told me you knew your place?" Selena smiled, leaning into his warmth. "I do. I was wrong, though. I did not know my place at all. I thought my place was in the shadows, invisible and insignificant. I thought I was nothing." Darius turned her to face him, his eyes full of love and pride and absolute certainty. "You were never nothing, Selena. You were always a queen. You just needed the right moment, the right people, the right circumstances to remember it. And I needed you to teach me that worth is not about power or position or what others think. Worth is inherent, unshakable, and you have always had it, even when no one else could see." Selena kissed him softly, gratefully, thinking about the scared Omega she had been, and the confident queen she had become. The journey had been painful and difficult, and sometimes terrifying, but it had also been necessary. Every hardship, every rejection, every moment of doubt had shaped her into someone strong enough to carry a crown, wise enough to wield power justly, and brave enough to claim her destiny even when it seemed impossible. She looked out at her kingdom, at her people celebrating in the streets, at the future stretching bright and promising before them. Shadow lay at her feet, ever watchful, ever loyal, the guardian beast who had known who she was even when she did not. And beside her stood Darius, her mate, her king, her partner in all things. This was her place. Not in the shadows, not invisible, not forgotten, but here, in the light, exactly where she belonged. And it was more magnificent than anything she could have ever imagined.